Over the summer, the Calgary Police Service has responded to a number of reports of firearms which turn out to be air-powered guns. Police are reminding owners of air-powered guns to be aware of how they're used and transported. BB, pellet, and airsoft guns are often made to imitate real firearms and are so realistic looking, they're easily mistaken by the public as the real thing. Although a balanced approach is the aim when responding to a call involving a potential firearm, public and officer safety is a priority and often necessitates a large amount of resources until the weapon is confirmed to be a replica. In Calgary, it's a bylaw offense to fire any weapon within the city limits, including on your own property. It's also against city bylaws to transport an air-powered gun with a round of ammunition in the chamber. These guns can be used at approved shooting ranges within the city, as well as outside the city limits, providing permission has been obtained from the private landowner, and in accordance with proper handling and safety procedures. And I'll take some questions, and then we'll do the reveal of which guns are real and which guns are not real.
How much time is wasted, I guess, or taken up with police having to respond to these calls?
That's a really difficult thing to measure, but maybe to put a little bit of context on it. Just last week we had a call of somebody shooting a rifle, and it was described as an AR rifle, so a military assault style rifle, in the Nose Creek area. Because it's a big open area, there were about 12 to 15 officers assigned to deal with that call, and it took over an hour, probably almost an hour and a half, in order to resolve that incident, just because it's such a large open area and with the potential range of that weapon if it was in fact real. And it turned out to be a, was it a BB gun? What was it? Paintball gun is what it was, yeah.
So do you find that a lot of times people are just kind of accidentally, somebody sees it and they think it's a gun and then they call you, and that ties up resources, for people also using it in the commission of an offense, wanting it to look real?
Both. Yeah, both. We definitely see them used in the commission of offenses, whether they be robberies or threats or intimidation. And then often I think people don't really realize the impact of how they use and transport these weapons, the impact it has on other members of the public. So when we did our little test with you folks in the room, I noticed there was quite a few people that were about this close to these guns, trying to determine if they're real or not. And you can imagine a member of the public, whether looking from across the street or driving by in a vehicle or from down the block, these guns are going to look real to them. So, but to the person transporting or shooting this gun in their hands, they might think, well, it's obvious it's a pellet gun, but to a member of the public or even our officers, it's not always obvious.
And you have to treat it as if it's real until you can prove, for resource-wise.
Right. I mean, we always take a balanced approach, and tactically speaking, we always use as much intelligence and information as possible when we respond to these calls, to deal with them in the safest manner possible. Sometimes it's pretty clear that it's a pellet gun or a BB gun. There's a couple of examples on this table that look pretty obvious that they're pellet guns in the hands of a small child. We might approach that slightly differently than some of the assault style ones. So it really depends on the situation.
What charges? Yeah, but it can really, you guys can end up having to take it more seriously than you would normally have had to if you just knew.
Absolutely, we have to. I mean, until we prove it's not a replica or a BB gun, we have to treat it like it is.
Charges. Have you laid many this summer?
I can't give you any firm statistics on them, but yeah, we've laid a number of bylaw charges for using pellet guns inappropriately. And in fact, I was just talking with my colleagues about one that was laid just last week for somebody shooting out in the back alley, shooting an airsoft gun just at a fence. It's common. Mm-hmm.
And would that be a fine? Or
typically it is a fine, and the fines can be fairly steep, of course depending on the situation and many different factors, but they can be in the $500 to $1,000 range.
And is this something that you're noticing gaining in popularity? I know you said you don't have statistics to back it up, but is this on the rise?
Again, it's tough to track without those statistics, and the reason why we don't have firm statistics is mostly because the calls come to us in a number of different formats, whether it's a suspicious person with a gun, suspicious vehicle, a straight up gun call, and sometimes it's just really hard to track. I can tell you anecdotally that from the spring until the fall, we'll have at least several pellet gun, BB gun related calls per week. And I think this is, again, my opinion as a duty inspector, seeing this on a day-to-day basis. that because of the reality and the quality of the pellet guns these days, it seems like there are more of these calls that we're responding to.
Can you talk about what kind of risk someone is putting themselves in when they're carrying something that looks like this into an area like no smoke or no street?
Well, I guess from a police perspective, the response that we'll use, if we believe it to be a real gun and we can't determine otherwise, we're going to treat it like it's a real gun, and so we have a tactical response that goes right with that. And the last thing we would want to see is somebody accidentally or inadvertently put themselves in a dangerous position. Of course, in this call in Nose Creek, we had our K9 unit, we had members of the tactical unit there, and we had the Hawk helicopter. And the last thing we would want to see is for somebody to accidentally or inadvertently get hurt as a result of carrying a replica gun or a BB gun or a pellet gun.
Is there training for officers so they can kind of look at a gun and know right away whether it's real or fake?
We do have some weapons familiarization training while our recruits are in the academy. But as you can imagine, there are so many different kinds of weapons out there. It's tough to be familiar with all of them. And again, from a distance, it can often be very difficult to tell whether something's real or not real. So I guess one of the real purposes of this this demonstration is to encourage people to transport these things properly. Don't bring them out unless you have to at a shooting range or an approved location, and maybe we can just avoid the situation altogether.
Do you feel that the sellers of these guns do a good enough job of educating potential buyers on not only the dangers but the bylaws and whatnot in owning these guns?
I'm not really sure, to be honest with you, because I don't know what they're telling the folks, if anything, when they're purchasing them, so I can't really say.
But it's kind of putting Calgarians at risk because you're tying up resources that might be needed on a real call, right?
Absolutely. We would rather have those 12 to 15 officers dealing with other calls for service that are legitimate in nature. Absolutely.